Roxo Media House.
From the Flying T Club studios at Roxo Media House, this is Frogs Today, featuring special guests, former TCU quarterback Jeff Dover, Super Bowl champion and former West Virginia Mountaineer Jeff Hostetler, College Football Hall of Famer Major Harris, and the voice of the Mountaineers, Tony Caridi. And we'll check in with our panel of experts. And now here's your host, the voice of the TCU Horned Frogs, Brian Estridge.
Welcome into Frogs Today. It is our football intensive Friday. Do we have a lineup for you here today? Coming up, Jeff Hostetler, the former Giants Super Bowl winner, of course. He played at West Virginia. He's going to stop by. Major Harris is as well. You remember that name. He's a College Football Hall of Famer at quarterback for the Mountaineers. We'll start to dive a little deeper into this matchup coming up on Saturday. The Horned Frogs and the West Virginia Mountaineers at 11 o'clock from Morgantown. Crazy things happen there. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Our panel of experts is going to stop by as well. But right now, what we've been trying to do here on Fridays, leading into games, of course, is to kind of rekindle some of those great memories in TCU football lore. And we do that with that quarterback position, of course. And we got this guy right now, Jeff Dover. Here's the mesh right here. What do you think, man?
I like it. Still got it.
And the great Jeff Dover is here with us. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
This is a big game coming up on Saturday. I want to get your perspective on what you're seeing out of this TCU offense. By the way, Jeff's a coach. We'll get into that later on. But what do you see out of this TCU offense and Max specifically, Jeff?
I think it's exciting and fun. I mean, these guys are speed all over the field is a big deal. When you have a quarterback that can run the ball too and add another, it's a bonus guy in the box for you. I think that's huge in the game today. So Max is doing a great job getting the ball to the weapons that he has, but also the run threat is a big deal in today's offensive schemes to add bonus players in the box. I think that's huge.
Could you have been okay with Kendra Miller at running back behind you?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that would have been fine too. We had a pretty good one as well,
Yes, you did.
they're doing a great job of keep reloading that running back position.
And the wide receivers, you get to get out like Quentin Johnson and Tay Barber and Darius Davis. It's kind of any game you want to play.
Exactly. It's hard to match up with one guy when you got that many weapons around you and stuff like that. So they're doing a great job of spreading the ball around, and I think that's a key to why they're scoring so many points.
Max just seems like things are happening a little easier for him, too. He's not as quick on the read, taking his time, but he's also getting rid of the ball quicker. That's kind of I know I just kind of said it differently, but he's he's patient yet quick.
For sure. And, a lot of that is experience has a big part of that.
Yeah.
And, going into the season, I know there was a little quarterback controversy, but sometimes sitting back is the best thing for you. You can see the big picture and, learn from other people and new coaching staff and all that stuff. I think they're doing a good job of that.
You were back a part of the quarterback controversies back in the day.
For
You
sure.
know what it's like. And I thought the way that Max handled it could not have been better.
Oh.
Loses a starting job, was a perfect teammate, knew his number was going to get called, and then responded.
No doubt. Just like, any position, but especially the quarterback position, the backup's always the big talk and all that stuff, but you always got to be ready because everybody's one play away. And for him to be an older guy that's been around and to keep his mind right and to be ready to go right when his name was called, that's a great testament to him.
It was kind of similar situations. You played early. Max played early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that freshman year, you threw for over 1,400 yards, right? 9 touchdowns. Had the great win at Oklahoma to start things out.
That's
what
right.
was the play? 24 for 48?
448. Great 24 for 48. Still got it.
Yeah, still got it. That was the first play. Where'd you throw it?
Right over the top to Jason Tucker.
Yeah, how about, I love
deep
it.
post to Jason Tucker. That was to get us on the board first, to kind of get the momentum.
Yeah,
So.
crowd got quiet on you?
A little bit. That's the best feeling on the road is to get the crowd quiet.
I bet you that was a great win. Do you remember that day still? I mean, are you one of those guys like golfers who can go hole by hole, stroke by stroke? Can you go play by play on that
For
one?
sure. I can do that for sure.
Really?
I remember the locker room before the game, Coach Sullivan came up with a penny and told me to put it in my shoe. It was his lucky penny. Might have been, just a story, but
Sure.
it worked. And I remember they had an easy pass for me the first play, and I threw it right in the ground, bounced to somebody, and I was like, oh boy. But then once the nerves settled down a little bit, it was, a great moment for TCU in our class for sure.
So I got to know this. Did you play with that penny in your shoe?
I sure did.
That would have bothered me.
I didn't notice it. I guess all the other stuff going on, and
Yeah.
I put it back in the next week, and we got beat pretty well, so I threw that penny away.
Was there a point in that game at Oklahoma where you thought to yourself, we might win this thing?
For sure. Back then we didn't know as much about, we just said, watching film and doing that stuff, we're going to win this game. We didn't, there wasn't as much ESPN and the highlights of other teams, but going into it, we had a good vibe about it. And then to get on the board first and the way our defense was playing that day, it gave us a chance to get settled in offensively with a younger group and then put some points on the board late to finish it up.
Then you play the Sooners 2 years later here. Man, I remember that. What a heartbreaker.
Yeah, it really was.
It kind of controlled the whole game until the very end, and they ended up winning 10-9.
Yeah,
right?
it's about 58 minutes of dominance is what we
Yes.
used to say, in that game. But the rain and all that, then the onside kick late, and then the late score, really, that was a tough one to take. But, that's how it goes sometimes. So you just got to – it's a next play for the next guy and a play-by-play. Each play is, a big one, so you never got to play all 60 minutes.
Our boss, JW, won't let us bring up the 97 season around the office.
Yeah.
But I got to talk about that last game.
Okay.
Because you take on SMU, you got a chance to keep them out of the bowl situation.
Sure.
They were going to get a bowl bid in Fort Worth that night. You're on ESPN. You hadn't won a game. You're out there. Walk us through that game because it kind of started out the way it was supposed to. Started out the right way, didn't it?
Yeah, for sure. It was an emotional night for sure because we all knew the coaching staff was going to be gone after that game, and Coach Sullivan and his staff are the ones that brought us in. So it was a big night for us too, emotionally, and a big rival game like that. So it was a fun atmosphere for sure, and tearing down the goalpost for a one-win team, looking back is like kind of crazy, but at the time it meant a lot to us to do that for not only the coaching staff that brought us there, but to keep those guys out is also a little bonus on top of that. So it was a fun game for sure, and a great way to send those coaches out for sure.
You threw 2 touchdown passes in the first half, right, and then ran for another one in the
ran
second.
for another one, which was I'd run it for my life. So I always tell people I'm real fast when people are chasing me.
Right.
So that was one of my few running touchdowns. We fooled them pretty well. Yeah, it was a big night, and like I said, everybody makes. Or the left-handed touchdown pass,
Right.
that game is kind of the one that gets brought up to me a lot.
Yeah.
But it was a blown play pretty much, and I was just trying to not get hit myself. And anytime I get it to Basil or LT, I felt good about myself.
Yeah, you're just trying to survive at
That's
that
right.
point, right? I would be remiss if I didn't bring out what happened next. Dennis
bet.
Franchione comes in as head coach. You're fighting for the starting job.
For sure.
But it's a totally different system. They come in, they're bringing the option in. You're coming out of Grand Prairie, then at TCU. That wasn't necessarily your forte, right?
For sure wasn't. I never heard. I've seen option football like in the old 70s film and all that,
Right.
but it wasn't my style. In high school, we threw the ball all around, and that's what I came in to do. And, under Coach Sullivan, a Heisman winner and a professional quarterback. So that was a different scenario for me too, but like I said, I don't think I would have got into coaching and doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for that experience.
Yeah.
It was tough at the time because it wasn't my forte, and so me and Patrick split a little bit. Then
Yeah.
when Casey came in and did a great job running the option. But stepping back and looking at the big picture and learning a little more football and the back end of it instead of being involved in it all the time and, getting your mind ready for every week, that was a big reason what I'm doing today with that experience that Coach Fran and Coach Dodd and those guys taught me.
Were you ready every week just in case?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I think I learned more from those guys at the end, mainly because I was a junior and a senior, a little bit older, but also the way they taught the football game and gave me some different experiences of different schemes and ideas to do. So I've never been more ready, and then we still use some of those plays today at the school that I'm at coaching.
Yeah, and then you get to celebrate the Sun Bowl victory. So
for sure.
That's what matters.
Yeah,
right?
the Sun Bowl victory our junior year against USC. That was we always say, the guys that were around, that we kind of boosted the program,
No
hopefully,
question.
to where it is today. It was the first big kickoff to that, and then the next year to win the conference and beat East Carolina in the Mobile Bowl. That was a big jump start for where we are today.
Yeah, JW claims that TCU football wouldn't be where it is today if not for him.
That's right. That's what us old guys. That's what we live by. First year, I don't know if that's the case or not, but we like to think that ourselves.
How good would you be in today's systems?
Well, we probably all say it, but we'd probably be better today than we were back then. But yeah, it would be nice for sure to sit in the shotgun every play. I tell my quarterbacks today that we threw 15, 20 times a game.
Right.
It was under center unless it was 3rd and 12 or 14. So.
Right.
It's nice to sit back there and see the big picture. Yeah, it's fun to watch for sure as a fan of the game and as a coach. It's nice to see the ball being thrown around and spread out a little bit. So I think I would have done well, but again, that's the old guy in me talking.
I love the fact that you're still a proud Horned Frog.
Oh, for sure, no doubt. Like I said, not that I'm at every game, but I'm tuned in, and you guys do a great job of keeping us. Even I'm in the car at home. I love watching it and keeping up with it. So.
All right, Trinity Valley now, right?
Trinity Valley School, right down the road.
Coaching quarterbacks, baseball coach.
That's right. Yeah.
Got a good baseball team coming in.
Really good baseball team. Our football team actually is in the championship next week for our state championship for the SBC. So we're having a good little run over there right now.
Yeah, a lot of fun, man. Tell me about your family. What you got going on?
I have a wonderful, beautiful Horned Frog wife, Crystal Dover, Crystal Finolio formerly. We have 3 young daughters.
Does she teach at TVS?
She does. She's the head volleyball coach there also, so that's where we met. So pretty lucky guy there. We got 3 beautiful young daughters.
Yeah.
1, 3, and 5 years old, so it's keeping me busy for sure.
All right, I know you got to go home and watch film on that Covenant baseball team
That's
to get ready for that one.
Got to always stay ahead of the game.
We're good rivals that way, man. I love you, brother. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you so much for
really
having me.
appreciate it. Proud to have you in the Flying T Club studios. Jeff Dover joining us here today on Frogs Today. Talk about quarterbacks. We got Jeff Dover, we got Jeff Hostetler, and we got Major Harris, and they're coming up next when Frogs Today continues here on the Football Intensive Friday.
Dave's Hot Chicken is a cult favorite and now has 2 locations in Fort Worth, Bryant Irvin Road on I-20 and Berry Street at TCU, both owned and operated by Horned Frogs. Mention the Frogs Today show and get 10% off anytime and order online at daveshotchicken.com.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Texas-based Happy Water offers the best tasting sugar-free kids drink ever made. Happy Water comes in 4 delicious flavors that you can find at local retailers and on Amazon. Each pouch contains 0 grams of sugar, 0 calories, and 0% juice. Head to happydrinks.com for more information and to purchase Happy Water. That's HAPI Live happy, be happy, drink happy.
Our Football Intensive Friday here on Frogs Today continues right now. We get to learn more about West Virginia, a little bit of their history, as we bring in one of the greatest of all time. Jeff Hostetler joins us via Zoom right now, the former Mountaineer. Jeff, great to see you. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Well, it's great to be here. I appreciate you guys asking.
All right, let's dive right into a couple of things. I want to start with this. For a lot of folks don't realize that Jeff Hostetler was part of the transfer portal before the transfer portal existed. You started at Penn State before West Virginia. Talk about that process back in the day and how it was.
Well, back in the day, there was no such thing as transferring, and especially transferring out of Penn State and playing anywhere else. So I was very fortunate at the time. Made the decision to leave. I had actually started my sophomore year at Penn State and then got benched, then came back in and played really well, and then promised to start the last 2 games of the season, and that didn't happen. Decided that, I wanted to continue to play football, and it just wasn't going to be at Penn State. Made that decision, difficult decision. I had my whole family, brothers, sisters, brother-in-laws, all were Penn Staters, and to leave there was a difficult decision, but best decision in my life. So, I sort of started the transfer portal back then.
You go to West Virginia, you make an immediate impact. You play. Was Oklahoma the first game that you played as a starting quarterback at WVU?
Yeah, it wasn't a bad place, a bad way to start. We went out to Oklahoma. We were, at the time, supposed to kill their horse because he was going to run around the so much, die of dehydration. So for us to go out there and to beat Oklahoma, in a sea of red was pretty awesome. It was a great way to start my career at WVU.
Yeah, 3 touchdown passes in that one. You went on to a great career there at West Virginia, and then you make your way to the NFL. And I was, I remember your days with the Giants and the Raiders and the Redskins. Obviously, the Giants' days stand out. A pair of Super Bowls, a Pro Bowl opportunity for you. You should have been the MVP in one of them. You realize that, Jeff. They gave it to Otis Anderson. But, I mean, what a great run you had.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll compare my playoff run to anybody. I waited for a long time. We talk about that transfer portal. At the time, for me in the NFL, there was no leaving the team that you were drafted by. There was no free agency, and so I sat there for 6.5 years. 6.5 years of my prime athletic career, waiting for an opportunity, and then when the opportunity came, I gotta do it now. You never know if you're going to get another chance, and to be able to be part of that, and to be able to have accomplished the things that I was able to do there, and win a Super Bowl, that's pretty special.
You got to play, but you were playing behind Phil Simms earlier in your career, and you're trying to figure out how to get on the field. Did I read correctly? Where the first time you touched a football in the NFL in a game, you were actually blocking a kick?
That's probably correct. I'm probably I know I'm the only winning quarterback in the Super Bowl that blocked a punt, caught a pass, and ran the ball before I ever threw one in the NFL. So I was trying everything I could to get out on the field, and just waiting for the opportunity at the right time. And then when you get that, you got to take advantage of it. So I was fortunate to be able to do that.
Was there a point ever where your frustration was forcing you to think about saying, maybe I'm going to hang this up and you get into something else?
Oh, without a doubt. It was, again, 6.5 years into it. And I had that seventh season. I had an opportunity early on in the season to played really well. We had a big comeback and won a game. And then later on, got a chance to, while the game was still on the line, Parcells was testing me, and decided that right in the middle of the third quarter against the Cowboys, it was maybe a 10-point game. And he said, "Hey, Hostetler, you're in." And so just out of the blue, ran in, took us down, and we scored. And I felt like, everybody, my teammates, everybody knew that I could play. I was just waiting for the opportunity. And then it dried up. And I can remember that year I came home and sat there at the dinner table with my wife, and I said, "Hey, babe, I'm done. I'm so frustrated. At the end of the season, we're moving back, and I'll figure something else to do, but I just can't do this anymore." The following week, Sims went down. 5 weeks later, I won a Super Bowl. So, it's a tough thing to stay into it mentally, and you have to weigh the pros and cons of everything, and the frustration is really, really tough to deal with. But fortunately, didn't have any other alternatives, and it was brought up that way to on a farm. Things break down. You got to keep plugging away, just like my dad did. So it paid off.
And now, Jeff, you think about what you've been able to accomplish outside of football, but you're still tied into West Virginia and your legacy there. I know, got the construction company, but to me, the thing that stands out is what you were able to accomplish and assist with the West Virginia Children's Hospital there. I got some buddies who told me all about the effort that you put in to add another floor on that hospital, along with some of your fellow West Virginia Mountaineers. And to me, that's real impact in life.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been really blessed, and I've got 3 sons and almost lost all 3 at different times. So my wife and I knew how difficult it is on families when you have a child that's either in the hospital because of an injury or an illness. And so having almost lost all 3, and yet being blessed that all 3 made it through, and not all families have that luxury. And so what we wanted to try to do is help those families get through some of the most difficult times. And I'm really involved in our children's hospital. We put a brand new facility in, $215 million facility. And on the top floor, we have a floor that is built out as a locker room thing. And there we have a family resource center that we're going to help these families, try to take care of all those things that continue to move on and continue to go through life with. Try to take those things off their plate so that they can concentrate on their child that's in the hospital. And the goal was to try to put them in a place that doesn't feel like a hospital, and to surround them from people that don't know them, never knew them, but have committed to helping them. And those are former WVU athletes, men's and women's sports athletes. So we've done a great job with it. We've got a great facility, but our real work is just starting. We're going to do some amazing things up there to help our families.
Well, kudos to you, man, for doing that. It's a long and storied tradition there at West Virginia. Folks may not realize 15th winningest football program in the history of college football. It's a proud group, and I think Frog fans will figure that out at 12 noon West Virginia time on Saturday, won't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think they'll show up. They'll be loud, and hopefully they'll be pumped up. And they're going to face a pretty good team that's playing really, really well, and got a lot of firepower on offense, and has proved it, and a lot of resiliency, being down numerous times and coming back and winning games. They'll be tough to beat here, but we're going to give it a shot.
Jeff, I'm going to do this on the air without anybody prompting me. We in Fort Worth host the Davy O'Brien Award every year, and they honor a legend every year. We brought back Bartkowski and Dan Fouts and guys like that. I'm going to push for Jeff Hostetler to join us in Fort Worth here in the coming years, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Well, I appreciate that, and hopefully we'll see you this weekend.
Yeah, sure will. Hey, we go from one great Mountaineer quarterback to another. Joining us right now is Major Harris. He was a dual threat quarterback before there were dual threats in college football. Major, good to see you. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
You know, I want to dive into a couple of different things. Let's go back to the 80s when you and I were good, man. We were in our prime, and you think about that 89, 90 run that you had. I mean, that was as good a football that was being played at the quarterback position in the country. You were kind of ahead of your time, though. Wouldn't you say that? You see these dual threat quarterbacks today. Major Harris was a dual threat quarterback before it was even cool, weren't you?
Well, I don't look at it like that. Being that we actually, played for a national championship, I thought we was on time.
And you did. You played Notre Dame in that national championship game. And I think back onto that one, Major. You get hurt early on, hurt that shoulder. How much did that affect you the rest of that game, man?
You know what? I always compared it to, I felt when I played in cruise control where I didn't worry about hitting the gas. I'm just out there and everything kind of running smoothly. But when I got hurt, when I hurt my shoulder, it was more, had to hit the gas. I was more things on my mind and stuff like that. So I really couldn't focus in like I totally wanted to, like it is like when you driving on cruise control.
Yeah, I get that. You're coming out of Pittsburgh, coming out of high school. All kinds of folks were recruiting you. The story I read, though, was that the University of Pittsburgh was recruiting you and you wanted to go there, but they didn't want you to play quarterback. Is that right?
No, that's not true. What had happened
good.
was they was recruiting me, and the coach at the time was Spo Fazio, and he ended up getting fired. A lot of times that get overlooked when you're being recruited is you can be recruited, then the coach might leave to take another job or might get fired, or the offensive coordinator leaves to take another job. And that can affect the recruit because, all of a sudden the guy that's been recruiting you for a year or 2 years is gone.
Then you get to go to West Virginia, go play for Coach Nalen, who's just one of the best, obviously, and a good dude. What separated West Virginia for you at that time to go to school there?
Well, it's close to home. Growing up, I heard of West Virginia. I've never been there. But, being from Pittsburgh, then you hear West Virginia, you think, man, that's something far off. But really, it's only like an hour and 5-10 minutes drive. So,
Right.
That was perfect.
You had a great career there. We talked about that earlier. Two-time in the top 5. You finished for the Heisman, All-American, all those things. You had the undefeated season. You played for the national championship. Then you guys went 8-2-1 or something like that your junior year. I mean, you look back on it, and that was 2 of the best years in the history of West Virginia football, wasn't it?
Well, we had some great teams before that and after that. I think we kind of set a trend where I guess people look for the winning season, so to speak, or not just, winning a couple games. Now, even now, you know what I mean? If we ain't 10-1 or 11-0, people ain't satisfied.
It's crazy how it works like that now, and I guess, and it's everywhere around the country. You know, you're paying these coaches a lot of money. Guys can transfer in the NIL, and people want immediate satisfaction, don't they?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely big time business now.
Yeah, it is that. You went off into the NFL, drafted by the Raiders, but then you decided to play in the CFL. What was that experience like for you?
It was different. When I look back on it, I mean, you think about it, you go from, you got 3 downs to get a first, well, because normally on fourth down, you punt. Up there, it's 2 downs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess you got to make more big plays up there. Then the field is wider. It was an adjustment, but I think the way my career went, I ain't gonna say I wasn't patient enough. It was just, I said, well, I go back to the States and play arena ball. So I came back, played arena ball, and that was that.
Major, did you ever get used to those guys in motion behind you, moving forward before the snap in the CFL?
Yeah, it's funny. If you go from playing, American football to arena ball, then, the field gets smaller, but you can adjust better than up Canada where the field is wider. And
Yeah.
now it's like you playing in the end zone, you just got to turn it around. Because up Canada, the end zone is like 25 yards long.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can throw a bomb for the 1 yard line.
That's what it feels like. Hey, TCU and West Virginia play. You obviously the Frogs and West Virginia weren't in the same league back in your day when you were in the ECAC. Tell me what you think of being in the Big 12 now for the Mountaineers, and has it helped them?
Well, yeah, I think from a recruiting standpoint, I think we still trying to find our way of where we going, like where's going to be the heart and soul of where we going to recruit at. When we was an Eastern school or playing Eastern schools, I mean, Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey,
Yeah.
they even dipped down into Florida. But now that we in the, in the Big 12, I think recruiting go everywhere. You go to California, I think it's based on where the coaches really want to recruit at. So I probably think that's the biggest difference is I don't know where our home base when it comes to recruiting now.
TCU and West Virginia came into the league together. They kind of, there'll always be that bond between these two teams, and they've had great games over the years, especially in Morgantown. There've been some blasts up there.
Yeah, I take my hat off to TCU. I mean, TCU has been a program over the years. Always had solid teams. Always was in the hunt for the Big 12 title, and yeah, they're doing a great job down there.
Major, you're one of the great names in college football, now a college football Hall of Famer. Well deserved, my man. I really appreciate you taking some time for us today. Look forward to seeing you in Morgantown on Saturday, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I'm going out of town. I'm going to be watching it definitely on TV and, cheering our guys on. Hopefully we can get to 4-4.
Major Harris, thank you for the time today.
Thanks for having me.
There he is, Major Harris, joining us here via Zoom. We got more on our Football Intensive Friday edition of Frogs Today after this time out.
Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Richard's Rainwater. Richard's Rainwater is 100% rain, refreshing, renewable, and the only ingredient we use in our water. Why rain? Because everyone deserves access to clean water, and rain is a 100% renewable resource available everywhere. Drink the rain. Save the planet. Shop now at richardsrainwater.com.
Dave's Hot Chicken is a cult favorite and now has 2 locations in Fort Worth, Bryant Irvin Road on I-20 and Berry Street at TCU. Both owned and operated by Horned Frogs. Mention the Frogs Today show and get 10% off anytime and order online at daveshotchicken.com.
Football Intensive Friday continues right now here on Frogs Today. Coming up a little bit later on, our panel of experts is going to be here. We'll start to break this one down as the Frogs get ready for West Virginia, coming up at 11 o'clock Central Time on Saturday from beautiful Morgantown, West Virginia. Speaking of that, the voice of the West Virginia Mountaineers, good friend and a good broadcaster, folks. This guy is a pro's pro. Tony Caridi joins us right now. He's been the voice of the Mountaineers for about 65 years, and he's kind enough to carve out some time for us here today. Good to see you, Tony.
Ryan, it's always my pleasure, and just to chat with you. I grew up listening to you, of course, and been fantastic. Just been a fan, and I just, when I was young, I remember coming out of high school, I said, if I could just be a little bit like Brian, I'd be happy, and to say that I'm content would be an understatement.
Look at you today. Look at you today. Hey, Saturday is kind of This is kind of there aren't any mousetraps laying around the offices at TCU, but if you're a TCU player, coach, fan, whatever it is, you got to kind of circle this one as a potential trap game. I try to tell people that West Virginia is a lot different at home than they are on the road.
They are, coming off of what has been our worst performance of the season last Saturday, against Texas Tech, absolutely zero went right. And there's no question about it. They're playing much better at home this season. Most recently, they had a good game back and forth against Baylor. And I don't know what it is. I'm not exactly sure if that's the inexperience. Young guys, when they go on the road, don't quite understand what it takes or whatever it is. But they have played better at home. And obviously, you take a look at this game on paper, and it's a little bit scary. You guys are scoring at an extremely high level, among the best in the nation, and West Virginia's defense is struggling. So on paper, it's a little scary, but then again, every week we see results that kind of make us scratch our head. And I think from the West Virginia perspective, that's what they're hoping for.
I don't get the sense that when Sonny Dykes talks about JT Daniels, the quarterback, and he talks about weapons at wide receiver and the freshman running back and an offensive line that you kind of had to piecemeal, I don't get the sense that this is coach speak when he says, listen, these guys offensively can still be dangerous and JT can spin it.
Yeah, I mean, at times, Graham Harrell has come in. He's the offensive coordinator in
Yep.
his first season, and there's no question that offensively they're better. And the big reason why is because of JT Daniels. And for those that don't know his story, 5-star recruit, came right out of high school, skipped his senior year and started at USC, got hurt, eventually went to Georgia, got hurt again. And so this was kind of like his last stopover to see if he can stay healthy, which he has to this point, and kind of live up to his expectations. He can throw it. He can throw it very, very well. He's very, very smart, and as far as understanding the game. And I think at times, we have had pass drops at key moments in games that have led us to not being able to live up to our expectation. And then going into this one, this week we've got two running backs who are banged up, 1 and 2, technically. And so it'll be a challenge for this offense. So we'll have to see how it unfolds.
Defense has struggled at times. You talked about that earlier, but Dante Steele's kind of pops real quick when you put on the film the defensive lineman from a local product there who's just had an amazing career at West Virginia.
Yeah. He grew up about 20 minutes away in Fairmont, West Virginia, and the defensive front is the unit that has the most experience to this point, or at least plays as solid of a unit. We got hit, Brian, in the transfer portal, like not just a little hit, like hit in all capital letters. We lost the two cornerbacks that would have started. We lost the two safeties that would have started in the transfer portal. And they went out and, they tried to get guys that had played a lot of games in high level programs, i.e. James Madison and North Dakota State, teams at the lower level that had won championships while they were there. And, okay, but you're not going to replace those guys. And so oftentimes, I look at it and say, what if? It's a huge what if, right? We have guys that are playing across the country right now that if they were back there, West Virginia would have a solid defense. But at this point, it's a very, very inexperienced defense. You can tell that a lot of times they're playing with paralysis by analysis, and that's been a big problem for them.
Sitting at 3-4 on the season, there's a lot of talk out there, Tony, and I never know what to believe. I mean, is this I'm not going to call it a make or break game for Neil Brown, the head coach, who Sonny Dykes loves, by the way, coached him at Kentucky. But I mean, is this one of those where you look, okay, the next 3-4 weeks could determine Neil Brown's future?
Well, I don't even want to go there, but I would say this, that Neil more so than anyone else knows what this business is, and more so than 20 years ago, the only thing that matters is wins. And Neil knows that, right? I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier today on the podcast that we do. 20 years ago, when Don Nehlen was at the end of his career, West Virginia's winningest coach, he's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He made on his last year in his 21st season $250,000.
Wow.
And nowadays, as you know, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
And so my point is, because dollars have risen so quickly for coaches, more risk, more reward. And so nowadays, where Don might have been able to get through on a 4-7 on an occasion, or we had a weird 5-4-2, people kind of go, okay. Nowadays, that's no longer acceptable because you're paying these guys very high levels. And so I think the biggest thing going forward over the remaining games is that you want to come away with it that you're trending in the positive direction. I think that's the biggest thing. Another Coach Neal in reference, he'd always say, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're never staying the same. And there's a lot of truth to that as a program. So I think, to answer your question in a roundabout way, I think that's the biggest thing. You want to see that you're getting better as you go forward.
All right, tell Frog fans what they can expect. Those who may be making the trip to Morgantown for tomorrow's kickoff, or those who will be watching on television. I tell them all the time, it's a great atmosphere for college football in Morgantown.
What they can expect in 2 words, just like it says on the logo when you come into the state: almost heaven. In all seriousness, fortunately for you guys, weather-wise, we're going to hit it. This is going to be a comfortable game in the 60s. They're calling for sunshine. Not that it gets horribly bad here, but it can also be rainy and 45 this time of the year. And so it'll be idyllic. The leaves have kind of passed their peak, but I think, where you're going to be located across, you can see in what we call Chestnut Ridge, it'll be gorgeous. It'll be golds and oranges. I think fans, they'll be respectful. It'll be cool. No one's got any problem with TCU. If it was Pitt, obviously it'd be a little bit of a different story. But I think you'll have it fun. I would encourage folks to kind of, get around and it's a good setting, kind of similar to you guys. You guys do a great job as well, around the stadium. So just have fun. It'll be perfect weather-wise. If you are coming in, by the by, basketball-wise, if you're like a hoops fix person, you need a little hoops. West Virginia is scrimmaging against Bowling Green inside the Coliseum on Friday night. If you want to get a look, if you're a huge hoops fan, they'll be going tomorrow night as well.
Which, by the way, I'm hearing Coach Huggins says his team's a lot better this year. You hearing that as well?
Well, I think he would also tell you they couldn't have got much worse than they were last year. Defensively, we were really, really bad last year. They hit the portal like a lot of schools, and we got 9 new guys on this team. I think they will be better defensively. They'll be more athletic. Scoring is going to be the question. Can they get back and score? We did a survey. We didn't do a survey. We did a little research last week. 42 different players have left Big 12 schools since last year. Wow. We lost the most offense, like 80 or 81% of our offense is gone from last year. I don't know if you know this or not. You guys lost less than 1% of your points from last year. That's amazing. Yeah. And I'm sure you guys are getting fired up for what should be a fun season. But, because most teams have lost, well, you know what? I said 42, it was 69, 6.9 players per team. So because there's so many new faces, I don't know chemistry-wise across the board if you can really make a strong call as to who's going to be all that. I think that remains to be seen.
All right, man. Have the pepperoni rolls warm for us when we get there this weekend. Looking forward to that.
Hot cheese for you. I will do it.
I love it, brother. Tony Caridi, voice of the Mountaineers, terrific broadcaster, kind enough to give us some time here today. We got our panel of experts. We'll start to break down this matchup even further. Frogs of the Mountaineers coming up at 11 o'clock on Saturday. We'll get to that after we do this.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club, or online at flyingtclub.com.
Texas-based Happy Water offers the best-tasting, sugar-free kids drink ever made. Happy Water comes in 4 delicious flavors that you can find at local retailers and on Amazon. Each pouch contains 0 grams of sugar, 0 calories, and 0% juice. Head to happydrinks.com for more information and to purchase Happy Water. That's HAPI Live happy. Be happy. Drink happy.
Simply the best barbecue in Fort Worth. Dine in, catering, or drive-through. 2900 Montgomery, just off I-30. Remember, the best barbecue in Fort Worth is at Railhead Smokehouse. Say hello to the water of tomorrow Richard's Rainwater. Richard's Rainwater is 100% rain, refreshing, renewable, and the only ingredient we use in our water. Why rain? Because everyone deserves access to clean water, and rain is a 100% renewable resource available everywhere. Drink the rain. Save the planet. Shop now at richardsrainwater.com.
Welcome back into the Flying T Club studios for our Football Intensive Fridays. We start to break it down. We've got our panel of experts with us right now as the Horned Frogs get set to take on the Mountaineers coming up at 11 a.m. Central in Morgantown, West Virginia. All right, we got these guys alongside. Coach David Bowden's with us. Landry Burdine from the Horned Frog Sports Network is with us. And back here in the port shirt.
It's not port.
What flavor is it this week?
Yeah, it's kind of red maroon.
Okay, yeah. We've got Jeff Wilson from Frogs Today joining us. All right, we'll start with Coach Wilson here. All right, you talked about Kendre Miller all week long now. You're sold on this guy. Running back for the Horned Frogs has been terrific. What about it? What about him do you like the most?
I think what I like the most is the way he just runs people over. You know, he's so physical. He has a 650-pound squat. And he said he's disappointed that the coaches haven't let him max out. So that's where he gets all the power. But he also has some attitude. And, you know, if you talk to him, he's kind of a laid-back guy, kind of sounds chill. But you see him on the field, and he knows where he has to go. Like the catch last week against Kansas State on 3rd and 17, he knew where the marker was. He went and got it, ran over a couple guys in the process. So he's just a complete back. He can catch, and he can run, and he will run through you. So all the 100-yard games he has this year, maybe a little bit overshadowed because of Max Duggan, but Kendre Miller and this offense, boy, they need Kendre.
Yeah, no question. Neil Brown talked about that this week. He talked about the fact that Kendre Miller may be the most underrated running back in all of college football. That's the TCU offense. Let's switch gears to the defense now. Landry Burdine, former safety, is with us right now. All right, Landry, Joe Gillespie's defense, still a work in progress, or are we seeing the finished product right now?
Brian, I would say work in progress right now. So it's nowhere near a finished product. What they're doing well right now is playing together as a unit, and they're not. The communication has been really good, I think. What they're not doing good is starting slow. So they're allowing a lot of yards early in games, a lot of big plays. The communication mistakes are really, I think, more related to a little bit of a chaotic environment, you know, kind of a big game more than it is scheme. But I think at the end of the day that this defense has showed you what it can do in the second half of that Kansas State game, and that's really rallied together. Now, I would also argue in Joe Gillespie's favor, might have been a little hijinks with the signals, and something we got into later in our broadcast, and but that got corrected at halftime. And, you know, Brian, I think you saw a big difference made there, too.
7 straight opportunities for Kansas State that resulted in 0 points. Not bad. All right, let's talk a little bit about special teams on TCU. We haven't done a lot of this. There's a couple of rating services out there that actually have the Horned Frogs really low. Is that just because there's just a small amount to judge here at this point? Do you think that's what it is, Coach?
Yeah, I think it's also a staff that's aggressive in going for it on 4th down. So you don't get to see them on the field that often. And really, Coach Dykes, I don't think gets credit with this too often. You hear about Mark Tomadal as a special teams coordinator, does a phenomenal job, and that's his sole job. I mean, he doesn't coach a position, so he can work with those guys. The kickers and punters feel really comfortable with Coach Tomadal. He spends a lot of time with them and is really giving them aspirations at the next level. But all those times going for a 4th down keeps those guys sidelined. But Coach Dykes is a guy who started when his time at Kentucky as a GA with special teams, puts a premium on it, and certainly from the head guy down, this is a unit I think that is strong. Like you said, Brian, though, they just haven't had a chance to show it off too much.
I think you're totally right. I want to get into West Virginia here shortly, but first I want to talk about the Big 12 overall. A lot of conversation around the country about how tough this league is from top to bottom. Jeff Wilson, tell me a better league in the country as far as consistency and having teams from top to bottom being solid. I don't know if there is one.
I think you're right. I mean, you kind of look around and, geez, you think Oklahoma's not good this year. Texas is average, and those are the 2 blue bloods. Those are the teams that are supposed to carry the conference. And even Baylor's having what looks like a down year. But the fact of the matter is that with all these top 25 teams, these road venues, Kansas being good and being a tough place to play, West Virginia is a tough place to play, just as Baylor. It's a tough conference, and TCU, what TCU has been able to do with the talent coming to the surface. It seemed like they were just pent up frustration here the last couple of years, not winning games, and they saw an opportunity. They bought in, and they've just followed the new coaching staff's lead. So good for them. Right now at the top of a tough conference, but it's not over. It's definitely not over.
A lot of football left. You're going through the gauntlet of 4 straight teams that are ranked. You're going to have a couple more before it's all said and done. All right, West Virginia is a different team at home in Morgantown than they are on the road. Landry Burdine, you've been there. You know what it's like. Let's talk about West Virginia's defense, which has been, I guess, a little bit suspect this year, huh?
Yeah, normally the Mountaineers play a lot of really good defense.
Yeah.
They had the Stills brothers there for years. They always had really good cornerback play. Their defensive backs were always very active, and they were one of the most physical teams, that I think the Frogs would face every year. So this defense is not that. They are literally below 117th in the country in really every major statistical category: scoring defense, third down defense, fourth down defense for that matter. Lack of turnovers. They don't create any takeaways. It's just one problem after another. And Texas Tech picked off 3 passes last week, and it's what West Virginia is not doing is what the Frogs are doing. West Virginia is not playing complementary football, so their defense is not taking care of their offense, so to speak. But like you said, Brian, this is Morgantown.
Yeah.
West Virginia, it's crazy. We've seen couches being burned. That's not a myth. So it's a weird place to play. It's an 11 a.m. game. All those things factor into it. I'm not going to throw it to you because I don't want you to be the first to fumble.
Exactly.
But playing in Morgantown is different, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's something that, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit concerned about.
But you also like the fact that it's an early kick for your safety, if nothing else, on the sidelines.
I do like that. I have been hit with a few things on the side. There in Lubbock are the 2 places.
Exactly.
You
All
gotta
right,
keep
that's defense for West Virginia. Let's talk offense now. Coach David Bowden. JT Daniels, 7-0 as a starter at Georgia, goes to Southern California. You got Neil Brown, who has a history with Sonny Dykes. I mean, what gives here? They may have an advantage, huh?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of familiarity between these staffs for sure. You look at the fact that Coach Sonny Dykes actually coached Neil Brown his second stint, that quick stint as a receiver coach at Kentucky, and there's a lot of overlap. This whole tree starts with Hal Mumme, Mike Leach, down to Sonny Dykes, to Neil Brown, and then Graham Harrell, their offensive coordinator. So they know what's going on. I imagine that Sonny Dykes has spent a lot of time with Joe Gillespie this week, sitting down and kind of going over some trends and really where this offense can get firing. And so you look at the staff. You talk about Graham Harrell. His dad's a big time high school coach here in North Texas, well known. Sonny Dykes was his offensive coordinator at his time at Texas Tech. Matt Moore, their offensive line coach for West Virginia, he played at Valdosta State, Division II power in Georgia. That was under the Hal Mumme, Mike Leach days at their time there. And you look at Chad Scott. He's a guy that played at Kentucky. He coached at Texas Tech. So this, it's all over the place. They know this offense. They know they're going to run mesh a bunch of times offensively. They're going to see that. And certainly, I think they'll have a plan. I think this is a week, though, with this offense, that they'll start dialing up a little bit more pressure defensively, more of a pocket passer in JT Daniels. As you said, big-time 5-star prospect coming out of high school, out of Irvine, California, where they sort of breed quarterbacks, went to USC, transferred to Georgia, had that battle during the national championship year, and then playing out his final year here at West Virginia. He's played a lot of football, Brian, and I think this is something that they can get after him a little bit, and because he's not a runner.
All right, sounds like it's kind of like you're playing your cousin.
That's right.
Well,
we're in West Virginia.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, you might as well, right? That's true. All right, let's get some predictions on what's going to happen here. Coming up Saturday at 11 o'clock at Morgantown. Jeff Wilson gets the first nod. What do you think happens here?
I think TCU is going to start fast for once. I think that they've really focused on that. They want to start quick. They know that it's gotten them in the past, or could have gotten them in the past, and if you do it on the road, it might be trouble. So I think that TCU starts fast. I think they don't have much trouble. And I know all the bugaboos that could happen. That maybe they have a letdown because they're not playing a ranked team. I don't buy into any of that. I think TCU wins somewhere around 41-24.
Ooh, okay, 41-24. Landry Burdine, what do you see? It can be a tough place to play. Frogs have lost 4 straight to West Virginia.
4 straight? How about that? Yes. I don't know that I realized that.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, this game is a trap game for me. It has me a little bit nervous. And I think that the Frogs are going to win the football game. I think they're going to win the football game handily by the end of it. But I think there's going to be some moments during this game where Frog fans and the Frog faithful are a little upset, maybe is the way to put it. And I really say that because Morgantown is a weird place to play. The fans are going to be pretty crazy down there. But I tell you why I believe the Frogs are going to win and ultimately win big is because of the locker room. The senior leadership in that locker room and the attitude that this team has taken on game in and game out is enough to convince me that they can beat anybody in the country. And I do think at the end of the day, they're going to handle their business.
Give me a score.
You want a score?
I want a score. Give me a
All
score.
right, I'm going to give you a 42-13 Frog
42-13.
win.
I like it.
And
All
I
right.
think the majority of that 42 is going to be in the fourth quarter.
Okay, good deal. I like it. Another strong fourth quarter for the Horned Frogs. Last time TCU beat West Virginia, Sonny Dykes was on the staff for the Horned Frogs. Does that help again this year?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, they've the last 3 trips out to Morgantown, they've left there with a blowout loss. Yeah. And so I think, though, this is the best TCU team in that time heading in there, and it's also the worst West Virginia team heading in there. I understand the Morgantown magic, but I think the early kickoff really helps the Frogs in this case. They're used to getting up early. They practice early in the morning. The guys talk about getting up at 5 a.m. every single day. It's part of their routine. I think that favors them, and the fact you don't have to play in a weird place at night. It could get weird. It could get interesting. However, for me, if I had a bet on it, I'm saying 42-17 Frogs. I just don't think this defense is capable of stopping all the firepower.
I like the 17 number, I'll be honest with you. I think you're right on there as far as West Virginia is concerned. I just think it might be a little bit tighter than that. I mean, it might be 31-17. Horned Frogs win on Saturday against the West Virginia Mountaineers. A big thank you to Jeff Wilson. You can find out everything you need to know about this matchup, plus a review after the game on frogstoday.com from Jeff. Of course, Landry will have all the coverage on the Horned Frog Sports Network from the field, and Coach David Bowden will be breaking it down all next week, dissecting the Frogs as the Frogs get set now to take on the West Virginia Mountaineers at 11 o'clock on Saturday. Thanks for joining us on this football-intensive Friday edition of Frogs Today. We want you to go to that website, frogstoday.com. We want you to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the website and to YouTube, to our channel as well here at Frogs Today. All right, until we see you next week, TCU and West Virginia, it happens on Saturday at 11 o'clock. For the fellas, we'll see you then. Thank you.
Frogs Today is brought to you by the Flying Tea Club, supporting TCU student athletes, and by Richard's Rainwater. Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Frogs Today is a production of Roxo Media House.
Roxo Media House.